just a heads up. Anything that I'm saying, I could be talking out my ass. It's just, it's information.
Can we put that line right at the beginning
really
of this podcast? Let's just
yeah. Actually, a little disclaimer,
We're putting
please.
that on the website, right on the landing page.
Yeah.
32
Perfect.
minutes.
Perfect.
There's the timestamp right there. 32 minutes, 43 seconds. Okay.
It's tasty, but I don't know.
Just so you guys know, I don't know what I'm talking about.
No.
Yeah.
Welcome to the B-Sides and Beers podcast.
Welcome to B-Sides and Beers, episode 74. Tonight we're hanging with Jonah from Detonate Brewing out of Summerland, BC. What's going on, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is fun. It's a first for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. We were just talking to Jonah right before that, and we were saying that we've never talked to anybody who has it's taken over the brewery rather than starting one kind of from scratch. So Jonah's taken that over, so it'll be interesting to talk to you from that side of it. But Jonah, like we do every episode, we need to start with what we're drinking, and guests go first. So tell us what you got.
Cool. It's a pleasure. As you guys can see on the screen, I got a nice light pale ale. It's one of my brews. Obviously, it's in a glass. And I did this one with fresh hops, actually from farmers here in Summerland. So, most breweries give away their grain to farmers to feed horses, to do fertilizer, whatever it is. It's just, less waste that you have to deal with. And obviously, it goes to a good cause. And they just came one day, they said, hey, we got some hop plants growing. And I thought, that's amazing. I love that. I would love to do a fresh hop, especially because I think it was my third or fourth actual brew on this system. And, so I was super new to it all. And I was like, you know what? It's in season. May as well just give it a shot. And so it turned out really nice, crisp, clean. It's even clear now. I basically did like super basic malts and, bittering hops, and then just dumped in about 14 kilograms for, I think it was like a 6 hectoliter batch. So quite a lot of fresh hops, awesome. Just kind of for flavor and aroma. And so it turned out really nice, clean, a little bit of like that, fresh hop sort of vegetal, but it's really not overpowering like a lot I've had. I'm really pleased with it. And it's a nice, easy drink.
And what do you call it?
Awesome.
This one, I took on one of my friends to kind of be my, brewing assistant, and it was his first brew with me, and so I'm calling it Joey's first fresh hop.
Nice.
His name's Joe.
Awesome. That's awesome. So it's
kind of fun when you get to name.
Is that one going to be like around, like again? Like is that seasonal?
Yeah, I guess probably seasonal. I'm not sure that I'd be able to exactly replicate it. From the people that I got the hops from, I actually they didn't know what variety it was. There was actually 2 different farmers. The one of them didn't know any of the variety at all, and they just basically had grown more and more and more on their property. And the other one, it has like Chinook, Nugget, and one other that I can't remember off the top of my head, but some nice hops too. Nice. It's a real mix, but I'd absolutely, next time I do a fresh hop, I'd definitely do it in this style with like the grain bill that I have and the yeast. I mean, it's just a basic yeast to kind of showcase it, but it'd be fun too to just keep using the same farmers, because obviously, hops grow back, and just use the same plants over and just maybe make a bigger batch next year and maybe make a label for it, maybe can it. We'll see. Might just stay in the tap room.
Yeah, that's
totally.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Dane, what you got?
Sure. Well, I went into the liquor store with the intention of getting something super awesome and different, and I just fell right back into some favorites. So I am drinking my Squirrel Chaser Hazy Pale Ale. So
Squirrel Chaser.
Yeah.
Yellow Dog.
Squirrel.
Yeah, I love Yellow Dog. I've also got a fresh hop Yellow Dog upstairs in the fridge that I might enjoy a little bit later on. And then, let's see, I've got a Kitty Hawk Honey Cream Ale from Ace.
Ooh.
Yeah, was like off the cream ales for a while, and I had one a couple nights ago, and I was like, this is so delicious. I have to get more of these. Okay. I also have a tunnel vision. This has been a staple for like the past couple of months. It is a Euro IPA.
Band and Rail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. New brewery, right?
I mean, I have never seen this before up until, like I said, a couple months ago I saw it, and I was intrigued by the Euro IPA, and it is great. It's a different IPA, obviously, but one that I keep going back to. And then I keep going back to this one too, obviously, Hoin Helios. So this is a Dortmunder Golden Lager. It's so delicious. So
and like nothing like anything else I've had either. Like that's such a different tasting beer.
The Helios?
Yeah.
Hoin does such a great job. I mean, it's not like it's different, but it's not like a popsicle, creamsicle, weird sort of flavoring. It's just something done really well.
Yeah.
And they tend to take like old European recipes and just sort of make them a little bit more contemporary, I guess. But
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen the summer mix pack that they had in liquor stores.
Oh yeah.
This summer, but I was drinking that so much. It's such a good array of beers. Like the 4 they had in there were just perfect. It was so nice for a nice sunny day. I think I bought that pack probably like 6 times throughout the summer.
Yeah, it's some go-tos for sure. Mike, what you got?
Love one.
Well, tonight I have going back to something similar that I had last podcast. It is a wee angry Scotch ale, Scotch ale from Russell Brewing Co.
Oh yeah,
it's a 6.5%. That's the first one, and it's fantastic. I've had it a million times, and it's brilliant. And the other one is from a company. This is imported from Holland. Now, I've had them on before, like last year, and it's the company is, or I guess the brand is 86, or I don't know if it's not the brewery. So it's called 86, and it's from Bavaria Brewery out of Holland, and this is their 86 Extreme.
So extreme, man. So
this is a 5 ml, and it is a 10.5%.
That's got to be the record on this podcast. I think that's it.
I think it is. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
What's the 8.6?
I'm pretty sure
I don't know.
86
I've had
proof, brother.
Proof. Yeah, I've had a couple of offerings before. But
in the restaurant industry, they have a saying. When you 86 something, you guys.
Yeah, you get tossed. You get banned from the restaurant.
That's exactly what it is.
That beer, 86 beer.
No doubt.
That's it. Maybe there.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense, man. Totally makes sense.
Yeah. Puts you, 8 feet deep, 6 foot long.
Got it.
Your grave, right?
So
brilliant.
this is probably gonna kick my ass tonight, but that's why you go
Goodbye.
for this. So excited.
Yeah, that's heavy, man. Hey,
Ready for the roller coaster ride?
Cross Canada on this one because again, I could not find any new beer, BC beer. I could not find one new one. I shouldn't say that. They were in 4-packs. But again, we've talked about that before. So I'm going. There's a little bit of everything. So this is it's called Legal Issues Scottish Export Ale. It's from Origin Malting and Brewing Company, and this is out of Strathmore, Alberta. Strathmore, Alberta.
Heyo.
Yeah. So a Scottish export ale, 6%, holds nothing to the 10.5, but it all talks about Alberta farmers and supporting Alberta farmers. So here's the next one. This one is the Boxing Rock Brewing Company, the 3 Sheets Cream Ale.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
And
Never heard of Boxing Rock.
Neither
before.
have I, probably because it's out of Shelburne, Nova Scotia.
Ah.
So
There you be.
there you go. It is legendary beer. And the last one, brewed out of Black Diamond, Alberta, Hard Knocks Brewery, the Early Riser Coffee Stout.
Ooh, always love coffee stouts.
It's a
It
nice
is a
can.
nice can. It's got
It is.
it kind of has the whole wraparound thing on there too. So yeah,
Yeah, nice. Good artwork.
5.4%, made with locally roasted coffee from Black Diamond, Alberta. So there you go. That's the 3 banger lineup for this evening.
Beauty.
Jonah, let's talk about Detonate. Let's give us the lowdown on this whole thing. Like, you took over, this is like a movie, like you took over a brewery. It's like, I think every one of our fantasies to just take that over and just take it, have it. But how did this all go down? Like, I read a little like a news article on it. When I was looking up Detonate, I saw that it was for sale, and like basically the owner was like done, and then that was the last I heard about it. So take us from there, maybe.
Yeah, no. So a little history. Detonate was founded in 2017 by a guy named Nathan Rosen out of West Kelowna there, and he's a phenomenal guy. Like probably one of the smartest guys I know. He's an engineer in his day job now, anyways. Going back from it, but he's been brewing I think for 14 years. Something crazy. He's just like a really knowledgeable brewer. He's one of those guys that like, he won't outright tell you about everything that goes on, in the brewing process. But if you ask him, he knows, so super smart guy. He opened up this brewery, and I'm actually sitting in the tap room right now, which was opened in 2019. And then next door, it's kind of like a couple of garage units. Next door is the original brewery, and which, is still the place that brews the beer. And then there was a little room. I think it's only it's got to be like 8 by 10 feet. That was his original tap room, and basically like the cooler over there that stores the beer now, just backed straight onto some taps right in that 8 by 10 room, and that was his original tap room up until 2019. So he was there. He's been doing like a lot of barrel aged stuff, which is really cool. He had a facility across the street that had, when I got here, there was 36 barrels that were just, a lot of them were a little bit too far gone at that point. But, there's some that, I'm salvaging and continuing with. But yeah, so after 2019, he opened up the tap room, and this is kind of where the story for him goes a little bit south, unfortunately. Obviously COVID happened, right? COVID-19 happened just early 2020. And then he had to, you couldn't have people inside. And so he had this new tap room that, he just kind of like put all this work into, and then couldn't really use it. So yeah, super unfortunate for the guy. I'm like, obviously, I would much rather it's just, him here doing his thing, making his beers. But unfortunately, after, a few years of dealing with COVID, like just doing what he can to sell beer, right, and just try to stay afloat, eventually he had to move back to his engineering job, just basically to pay the bills. So, there came a point, he's got a young family too. So I think he kind of just made the decision that he didn't really want to start back from scratch. So obviously you saw it went for sale. I think it was like last late February or
that's what I saw.
Or early February, something like that. Yeah. And so I actually to be quite honest, I didn't really have any sort of goals or aspirations of opening specifically a brewery. Like I've, come from the restaurant industry. I've worked in many different restaurants, and that's kind of my passion as well. That's what I knew that I love to do. But my parents kind of, saw probably the same article and said, hey, that there's a brewery in Summerland going up for sale. Why don't you just go and, check it out? And so I did. I showed up on the last day that he was open, and I just was like, this would be kind of cool. I want to at least look into it. So I started talking with him, started to put together a business plan, all this stuff. And then I guess, after several months, about a half a year, I'm here now, and we're doing lots of work in the space, basically renovating the whole tap room. I've been brewing beer, of course, just try to get everything ready, and I'm shooting to open in about a week. You can actually, on the video there, you can see my dad just walk behind me.
Oh, wow.
Hi,
So
Dad.
this is a process right now that we're witnessing.
Yeah, no, truly. If you look around a little bit, it's full on construction
wow.
right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so many people in here helping me, just doing an amazing job. Like my dad has built so many really fantastic things that like, most people would pay a professional to come and do. My dad's just in there and he's got the project on and he's getting it done.
Nice.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just, in the final stages, putting everything together, painting stuff, making sure that, I've got everything I need basically to open. And it'll be quite soon that happens.
That's exciting.
That's awesome.
Fantastic, man.
How does that work? So if you purchase a brewery, you get the facilities. Do you also get like the recipes? Are there beers that have continued on since the inception of Detonate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Actually, so that was kind of the big thing with me. Like, obviously I said that, I wasn't even a brewer before I started doing this. And I've had to do quite a bit of education in the short time that I've been involved in this process. And, I'm sure there's lots of, brewery owners and people working in breweries that would scoff just at the idea of me even attempting to, come in here and just start brewing beer willy-nilly.
Everybody starts somewhere.
So one of kind of the redeeming factors of that was, including the recipes and also like a learning, kind of a contracted learning period in from the prior brewer, Nathan, to me. So a certain amount of hours and then obviously the recipes. So basically what I've been brewing now is, based on the research I've done and his recipes. And there's a few recipes of his that have come back because I've actually had, people that have, just been kind of curious, looking at the facility and whatever, and like reaching out and saying, "Hey, are you bringing this beer back?" And I'm like, "Well, I wasn't planning on it, but if you really liked it, I will." Absolutely. So no, it's kind of it's been a mix of both. I think right now I've probably got about half of recipes that are like really close, like maybe different hops or whatever, and like the IPA, just more what I had on hand than what was in the recipe, but really similar stuff, same kind of grain bill, just the basic necessities to make the beer. A lot of it is based on what Nathan had already brewed. And he was like, like I said, he's been brewing for 14 years. He's a very experienced brewer. Like, I don't think I would trust myself to deviate too far from what he's already done. He did great things and he taught me really well on his system. It's a really, really kind of special brewery. It's not built by, Ripley Stainless with the whole brew house with the steps and the automatic push button kind of things. It was all built by Nathan, the guy, like I was saying earlier, he's truly like a certified genius and just everything in this brewery he knows about, and he knows beyond like, how it works and what it does. He can tell you exactly the mechanism that's controlling something inside, a certain valve or like a body of a thing. He's coded all of the computers in here. Truly, he's just like, a genius, and it's really awesome to learn stuff from him. And I feel like he's given me a really great start to get going. And I really hope to obviously keep him involved in the process as much as I can. I'd really love for him to come back and brew. Although I know that, like I was saying, he's got a young family and, I respect his time and maybe he wants to relax a little bit, spend some time with his family, because this is a very all-consuming process.
But when you're going to take it worldwide, Jonah, he's going to want back in, right? That's
totally.
He's going to come knocking. No,
and you know what? I'd gladly have him there with me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool that you've kind of almost had a mentor in that brewing process, right? Like, because that's one of the things that we always, well, at least I kind of always ask guests, like, how do you come up with these things? Like, they're like, oh, we have a, like Dane said, like a creamsicle ale. Well, how do you know how to make that taste like a creamsicle? And then if you order the ingredients and you're like, well, this doesn't taste like a creamsicle, I got to order something that does, and then I got to wait for it. You know what I mean? So we're always like, how do you come up with these recipes? Like, I'm going to whip this all together and hopefully it works good. Like, obviously there's research involved and stuff, right? But like, that must have helped, right? Having at least a base, right?
Oh God. Yeah. It was huge head start. Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to do it in any other scenario, and, back to, how do you even come about, basically, like you guys are saying, basically anybody's dream who loves beer, is just to, randomly, stumble into, ending up in a place where you're about to open a brewery that you've just bought, right? That is, kind of ridiculous, but, that was a huge part of it, was just having, the education, kind of the full, the full picture behind it all. And, it really, like, I think it'll make it work. I obviously have a lot more to learn. I'm super fresh in the industry. But no, it's been pretty fun so far.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said too about like learning on the job too, as opposed to reading the book beforehand and going through the whole manual and then going to do it. I find, you know what I mean? Like it's stressful, but it feels like learning on your feet like that. It's just you do it, right?
Yeah.
And then you get good results. But okay, so let's talk about the canning too. We wanted to talk about the canning, and we're not drinking any Detonate tonight because we don't have any cans. So that's why. But we would normally be doing it. So yeah, tell us about that whole process and what you got going on there.
Yeah, of course. No, it's a bloody shame that I can't get anything over to you guys, but yeah. So like I was saying, Nathan, kind of, it's not your typical brewery. It's not shiny, polished, new equipment that got shipped in from a manufacturer and all put together. And you have subcontractors coming in and all that. The mash tun is an old milk pasteurizer. The kettle and boiler, I think they're meant for their purpose. The HLT is I think it's meant for like fermenting wine.
The HLT,
sure.
What you give us the lowdown on what's the HLT?
Oh, it's kind of a silly. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good, man. It's
kind of a silly
acronym. Yeah.
It's a funny thing because it's called the hot liquor tank, but it's actually just where breweries store their hot water, which it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I haven't had anyone actually able to explain it to me why the name actually got the hot liquor tank. But basically just like your place where you have your hot water, because if you were to pull off city water all day long, then it would just take you hours to fill up anything with any kind of heat that you usually need, or storage or whatever it is. But yeah, so most of the stuff is repurposed. The fermenters, obviously, they have to be really nice unitanks, conical fermenters, like any brewery would have, and they're probably the nicest things in the brewery. But there's some other pieces of equipment like keg washer, which Nathan, I've actually heard stories from other breweries around town, and they were saying, yeah, he came and just inspected our keg washer really hard and was looking and asking a lot of questions about it. And we didn't really know why. And then we found out that he built his own basically. And so he got a guy in town to help him. I think somebody at Dominion Cider in town here was doing kind of the coding for it, like the brain, the PLC. And then that basically just operates a bunch of pneumatic valves that run a keg washer on a certain program. And it's a hilarious, it was one of the things that I think is probably the funniest thing to run in the brewery, because it's just always making sounds. There's always steam coming out somewhere, and there's just so much noise. It's a real mad scientist kind of piece of equipment. But it's all kind of thrown together, but it works, and that's the beauty of, what he was able to do is just everything works. The one thing that doesn't work right now is the canning line. And that's partly because I took some parts from the canning line to replace on the keg washer. But so that is the reason that you guys are not drinking Detonate beer right now, is because the canning line needs a little bit more work. And at the moment I've kind of prioritized just getting kegs going in the tap room before, I'd jump into the whole canning thing, getting labels done and all this. I'm working with an artist. It's been really great. Well, preliminary. I shouldn't really say that in case she's listening, because I haven't actually worked with her, but she sent me some really cool stuff just to kind of get her foot in the door and work with me. And it's some really cool labels. I can't wait to see them on shelves.
Nice.
But yeah, soon. I'm hoping for the new year. Realistically, it's probably not going to be in the next couple of months, because I know that I'm going to be, probably solving, hundreds of problems a day, trying to open this place and actually just get my feet under me. But yeah, hopefully in the near future, you guys will be able to find some Detonate beers on the shelves.
Awesome.
Man.
What a story. I mean, we've been sort of saying this from the beginning. This is kind of like every beer drinker's dream. Do you have the time to document any of this? I mean, it just seems like something that would be really interesting to watch, the processes and how things come together, or how you pull pieces apart from one machine and put them on another to make something work. This reads like
it's a reality show, man.
Yeah, totally.
I'd be watching this all day.
Fix my pub.
I keep thinking, especially with, having to renovate the tap room here. I wish I had one of those like reality TV crews where like the couple goes away for a weekend and they just completely renovate everything in like 24 hours, and then you come back and it's just all done and everything's perfect. I just, my parents are really good, and I've been doing a lot of work in here, but we're not quite that level of speed and efficiency. But no, I haven't unfortunately been, I have like written in a journal before on different like trips I was doing and that sort of thing, but I'm not really recording that closely. To be honest, I feel like it's just the start of a massive journey that, it feels really special right now, and it will be kind of special. Maybe it's a sort of unique thing, kind of the situation that I'm in, but, just really feel like this brewery is going to grow and it's going to, be a major player in the Okanagan eventually. And I just feel like this is kind of that little bit where anybody who's around, you just have a beer and you talk about, do you remember when we were doing this? Do you remember when this thing blew up? Do you remember, when this went wrong and when we were all scared about this?
Yeah,
but
totally.
And what's it like in Summerland? Like, I mean, we don't get, on the show, I don't think we've had a lot of Summerland beers. So like how many breweries are there? Is there anybody there?
Yeah, well, good question. There's actually, so this brewery was the first one in 2017. And then just last year, they actually just had their 1 year anniversary. Sorry, I skipped an entire brewery because, usually I'm, not saying the most, not that I knew the brewery at all, but they just kind of had a bad reputation in Summerland for the time that they were open.
Fair enough.
But there was a brewery before, and then actually a similar. I'm absolutely not a unique case in Summerland. Oddly enough, Giant's Head Brewing took over a brewery that failed, and they basically built the entire facility. They built a brewery at the back and a tap room in the front. And then Giant's Head Brewing is the other brewery. You'll actually be able to find them on shelves. I don't know if they're in the North Okanagan or Central Okanagan.
For sure.
Yeah. But so I've kind of been working with them a little bit, getting to know them, and the brewer as well is someone like me, who wasn't in the industry. He's a chef before, so he actually had they have a restaurant and all that, so he's got that down pat. He's run restaurants before, that sort of thing, but he's super new in the brewing industry, right? And he brought in another home brewer as well, so they've been working together and just kind of it's a completely fully functioning brewery, and they're putting out beers on shelves. They've got, they're hitting up events and all that. And they've been super kind to me, like helping me out a lot, which I really, really, really appreciate. Especially just to have someone in Summerland too, that, that little bit of camaraderie. Like Penticton's super close, and I used to be really involved in the Penticton beer scene. I was working for Neighborhood for a little while, which is connected to Yellow Dog, right? Yeah. And I just kind of know people from like Bad Tattoo. Really love the Cannery. It's one of my favorite breweries ever. And of course Slackwater, right?
Yeah, we've done all those on here. Not those interviews, but we've had all those beers on here.
Yeah. Oh, they're great beers. Truly, like the Penticton beer scene is, I think, one of the best in BC. But I'm probably a little biased just having lived there for a little while. But no, it's great to have the camaraderie here in Summerland. We're actually even, Eric, the brewer and owner there, he texted me the other day about, hey, do you want to, try to make he said he was in talks with people about doing a beer fest in Summerland. Nice. I was like, that's awesome. There's only 2 of us, but I love it. May as well just give it a shot. There's that. And that's basically it. There's actually, I think, 5 cideries. And of course, it's the Okanagan, there's loads of wineries, right? 1 distillery too. So a decent beverage scene, there's Bottleneck Drive is in Summerland here. So I've definitely had lots of help from other cideries, and the wineries are, always reaching out, saying hello. So it's a pretty good community around here. But me and Giant's Head are the only 2 breweries.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity, right? Totally. Like to have that in it sounds like, they're big. They sound like they're pretty big already, right? So you being that kind of smaller brewery in there that's intriguing. Yeah, it's kind of...
Yeah, no, it's kind of fun.
That's a good spot to be in there, I think. Okay, I was going to ask you too. Okay, What they're back. These questions are coming back to me. What is the lineup then for opening day? What's going to be available to drink in there?
Yeah. So I've been brewing pretty hard for the past couple months, and I've got over 10 beers that I'm ready to open with.
Wow.
It's just been lots of brewing, lots of kegging, lots of all that, but obviously no canning. But yeah, just lots of, like, my keg cooler, literally you walk inside and you walk into a wall of kegs.
Wow.
You know, like you got to take kegs out to actually get the kegs at the back.
Hell yeah.
So I've got a Pilsner. That is the only lager yeast that I'm doing, and it's just, you know, kind of a function of how the brewery works. It's kind of the best way to do it. I have one bright tank that kind of conditions that I use as kind of like the little conditioning tank for the lager yeasts. So I got a Pilsner. This is my fresh hop that I'm drinking. I've got a hazy IPA, West Coast IPA, Imperial Dark IPA.
Oh, nice.
That was actually my first brew ever on my own, and I literally threw together a bunch of old malts and a bunch of old hops from the previous owner. And at this point, you know, they were quite aged,
right,
you could say.
Right.
But I was just like, you know what? If I have to dump it, I have to dump it. It's kind of, you know, it's free in a little way. You know, I didn't necessarily pay for old malts, right? When I was, you know, calculating the price of the business. So I made it, and then it just ended up being, you know, I did a huge mash, filled that mash tun as full of that good, and then, you know, put in a ridiculous amount of hops, because hops have this thing. So alpha acids are what I summarized as just a bunch of big words, but the alpha acids are what make the bitterness that your tongue perceives. So each hop has like a certain percentage of alpha acids, right? And so older hops, generally, you can assume that the alpha acid content is degrading over time. They have like a certain lifespan. So I think in 6 months or something, it goes down by half. I could very well be wrong on that, but something like that. So I basically threw, you know, way too many hops at this beer to try to make it an IPA. Used completely like New Zealand hops, and then, you know, a bag of chocolate malt to make it dark, really dark. And then, just a lot of base malt to make it kind of like really high in sugar content. And I ended up with something that, you know, it's 9%. It's super dark, and it has like this really almost clean kind of raisiny sort of flavor, raisiny date sweetness almost. Really interesting.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it
I'll
does.
be driving. I'll be
Describes it
driving
real
down
good.
grabbing a growler. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really something. You know, at first it had some really kind of aggressive kind of alcohol flavors on it, just as a high percentage, but they've toned down over time, and it's actually changed quite a bit. And I think, you know, in 6 months, even, you know, those higher percentage beers, generally you like them to age a little bit, because they kind of mellow out a little bit and just get a little bit more well-rounded. Just a heads up, anything that I'm saying, I could be talking about my ass. It's just, you know, it's information.
Can we put that line right at the beginning of this podcast? Let's just
Yeah.
Actually, a little disclaimer,
Put
please.
that on the website, right on the landing page.
Yeah, 32 minutes. There's the timestamp right there. 32 minutes, 43 seconds. Okay.
It's tasty, but I don't know.
I don't know.
just so you guys know, I don't know what I'm talking about.
No.
Yeah. So I you know, back from that little tangent there, I got a stout, an ESB, which
Nice.
was an amber ale and an ESB that both kind of went wrong, but combined made a good ESB. You know, so the amber ale kind of tamed it was way too biscuity. You know how an ESB should be really like English kind of biscuity malts, right? It kind of tamed down the biscuitiness, and the amber ale is just far too like watery light. So they came together and made a nice ESB.
Did you mix those?
that
Did
was
you
another,
brew those
like, one of those
separately?
tips.
Sorry, Jonah. Did you brew those separately and then you just mixed them
Yeah.
together?
Mashed them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a blend. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
It was kind of, well, Nathan, it was one of his pieces of advice. So he came to work on the temperature controller. He's doing some work on the coding and whatever, making it work. And I was just kind of like giving him little tasters of beer while he was here. And he I was like, yeah, tell me honestly what you think. Because personally, I didn't feel so great about those beers. Most of the beers I've brewed, I've actually been pretty pleased with, shockingly. But those two beers, like they kind of came out and I was like, it's a bad amber, but it's an amber, and it's a bad ESB, but it's an ESB. Right. And so I gave it to him and I was like, be honest with me. And he's like, I feel like these would go great if you just mix them together. And so he gave that suggestion. I did it. We did it. We just tested there, like, put 50-50 or whatever it was. I think it was like, 35, 65 kind of ratios. But it ended up just being a much better beer. And honestly, I'd rather sell a good beer than have two different varieties of, kind of worse beer.
Yeah,
that's
interesting.
awesome.
Mix them together like that. That's cool. That's cool.
So then I have to ask, like, with these happy accidents, do you do the same process again where you make two
Yeah, how do you repeat it?
like okay beers and then you'll just mix them? Is that like the
Super beer. Yeah.
or do you de-engineer that, deconstruct it, and figure out a way how to like make that Frankenstein beer that you came up with?
Well, so, I've brewed, I think personally, I've brewed 10 times.
Right.
I'm not, I haven't duplicated a beer quite yet. I don't know what that process is going to be like, how accurate I'm going to be on the flavors.
Extreme limited runs.
But
limited
I
edition.
don't know. I really want to have an ESB. I really like the style. And, I think I have kind of a fun, fun name, fun label. And, that's kind of half the battle too, when it comes to selling a beer, it's your the name and the label, right? Because before you taste it, you got to see it.
Yeah.
So I feel like the good ideas that I have, I'm like, this is what I want my core beers to be, that I'm going to label and I'm going to can and I'm going to send off to wherever, and obviously do lots more. But, some of it just stays in the tap room, right? With this size of brewery anyways, right? You can't pay $1,000 for each label if you're only going to print,
Right.
Exactly.
or only going to can so many cans, you're not going to make it again. But yeah, no, to be honest, I hadn't quite thought about it. I would rather just make an ESB and call that my ESB next time. I'd love to be able to duplicate what it is right now. It's a tasty beer. But I just don't foresee that happening. There's a lot of beers, like the Fresh Hop as well is one of those that I just don't foresee myself completely duplicating. And there's lots of beers that, like I brewed once and I'm like, it's good, but I would make some tweaks next time. There's some things that I would change. I'm not going to hit the mark on my first go every time. Well, probably not hit the mark ever on my first go, but, do my best, right?
It's admirable to jump in like that and just do that. That's, that's cool.
Yeah.
Admirable or ridiculous.
Same thing.
Well,
Same thing.
Maybe.
Same thing. Okay, so is that it? Is that the end of the list? Because it feels like there's more.
No.
Yeah.
That would have been maybe like 7 or 8 maybe I've listed. And then I've got, so Nathan had, like I was saying before, he had 36 barrels of beer. Unfortunately, I have dumped out, I think, about 2/3 of those just because they took on a little bit too much acetic acid, like the vinegar sort of flavor, which is too bad. But then there's a few of them that I've kegged now. So I think I've got 4 different beers that are barrel aged, kegged, ready just to be poured on tap, tasters, beers, whatever it is. And then kind of included in that little project, I have 12 more barrels sitting in a different facility that I've actually fruited because so there was like, when I was going through the list, doing all the tasting notes of these different barrels of beer, another thing that was a huge first for me. I was tasting them and being like, okay, this is gross. This is kind of all right. This is definitely keg, and the kind of all right ones are usually kind of all right is like, it doesn't have enough flavor. So what I kind of thought there was like, I'll buy a bunch of fruit, like the fruit purees, right? And I'll just put them in the barrel and kind of see what happens, may as well, right? You got them, you spend $1,000 on fruit for 12 barrels, hopefully make a profit. So there's about 12 barrels that I have still fermenting. They should be about done fermentation now, with the additional fruit that's been added to them. And they're going to change a little bit. I've tasted all of them and they're actually like, they're weird, but they're like things that you're like, is this really a beer? Like it almost tastes like, not cidery and kind of like the off flavor that beers can get, you know, that appley sort of thing, but almost like something too light and sort of, you know, if it was carbonated, it'd be like effervescent and just, you know, fruity, right? So something that's not really like kind of barley forward, hop forward, whatever it is. Because I think most of them that went into those barrels were like Berliner Weisses, like stuff like that. So really kind of light beers anyways, and then adding in the fruit, letting them sit in the barrels, basically take that sweetness all the way to zero, right? Because you got all sorts of little critters that are just munching on it. So lots of different flavors there. And to finish it off, I have one last beer. It is a honey lemon wheat ale, and that was just fun. I bought some. Yeah, no, it's all right. I didn't intend for it to be a honey lemon wheat ale. The honey was, so Nathan had given me another piece of advice. Like I was going to use caramel malts to give a little bit more. I wanted a higher perceived sweetness in the beer. And so I was going to use caramel, and he's like, I don't know about caramel. It'll give you like really kind of dark, toasty, sort of caramelly, toffee flavors, right? Without, or, you know, if you do too much of that, it's just going to give you too much kind of toffee. And so he said, you know, use honey malts. They give you literally like a honey flavor. And at the time I was like, oh yeah, honey, sweet, fantastic, lovely. It'll just kind of disappear behind the lemon and the wheat, right? The wheat ale. And it turned out not to. It's like super, you can really taste the honey. And I dumped a bunch of lemon concentrate in there as well. So it has a little bit of a tartness. I had kind of an interesting time calculating the lemon there. I was really worried I put too much in because, you know, like you take a little bit of beer out and then you add kind of the lemon concentrate, right? And you just kind of mix it together. You see like, okay, what's the amount? You know, I ended up sitting at like 30 mils per liter, and that was the right amount of tartness for me. So then I went and I dumped all the lemons and concentrate into the fermenter, and I just let it do its thing. I went back to my little beer glass that was sitting on the ground, you know, by the drain, and I, you know, took another swig just to, you know, confirm that, you know, I hit the right kind of acid content. And I just took a swig, and all of a sudden my mouth was puckered, and I was like, God, it tastes like vomit. It's so acidic. What's happened here? And so I was so worried for a few days because it hadn't completely mixed together yet. I didn't really know what I was going to get. But after a few days I tasted it, I was like, oh, that's actually not so bad. I think I've kind of chalked it up to the fact that maybe I dropped some of the lemon concentrate onto the glass a little bit. And where I took the drink was like straight lemon concentrate. Because it was just way too much. I was so worried. I was like, that's a ruined beer. I messed up.
Those two go well together anyway. So, I mean, it can't be that bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's too acidic, right? I know that I've had some sours that, you know, really just pucker my lips. And I'm like, I wouldn't have more than a 4 ounce of that. Like, it's cool. It's fun to do. The pH is super low. It's super tart. But, you know, that's not really the kind of beer that I like to present. You know, I want something that has just kind of that citrusy brightness rather than like that tart puckering sour, right? I feel like that's what sours really do best, is just add a little bit of something to the flavor profile, right? Totally. Rather than take it over.
Yeah, that's awesome. So those 10 beers then, like some of those will be ones that you'll do again, but other ones will be kind of like a rotating, like we said, like a seasonal kind of thing that you'll just always have some, you know, flowing taps of different stuff.
Yeah, for sure. No, I really want to position this brewery as something that will always have new beers on tap, always be trying new things. Oh, I forgot the most important one. This is, you guys are going to love this. This is a ridiculous beer.
Awesome.
So I've got this one in the fermenter right now, actually. So Nathan, just as an experiment, I don't know if he'd done it. I think he did it in like his pilot batch system, a 1-hex system. He was brewing it. And so I don't know how to really like set it up without just telling you it's a taco beer.
Sweet.
So it's got like, yeah, I know.
Yes, please.
I know it's kind of crazy. But
yes, please.
So it's basically like the brewing process is in the kettle, you know, when you're boiling, you put just enough hops in to give it balance. And then you dump in, I think I did like 40 limes, 3 bunches of cilantro, a bunch of coriander, but maybe I shouldn't give away my secret recipe here.
That's like a pico beer, man.
There you go.
No, it is literally. And you taste it, and you're like, wow, taco seasoning.
That's beauty.
Like it just tastes exact. And there's a bunch of corn in it as well. You know, it's just
that's beauty.
Lots of chili powder. Like it's ridiculous, but it's surprisingly like, I think it'll really hit, I think it'll land well with Canadians because we love, our Caesars, right? We have those kind of savory, sort of spicy drinks, right?
exactly.
Love
yeah.
it. Yep.
Yeah. And so it's got a little bit of a spice, and you guys have probably tasted some chili beers too. Those are pretty nice as long as they're done well, not too spicy. But this is like that, just like enough chili powder or enough spicy chili powder to make it a good amount of heat. And I was thinking, if I'm going to serve it on tap here, I'd like to add a little bit of clamato in there, rim the glass with like some, spices or something, and then make it a chilada, right?
Yeah.
Could be kind of fun.
Man, that's awesome.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But like for some reason it works. Like just tasting it from the fermenter, like it's like, I would probably have a full glass of this beer. And I know it's silly to put it like that. I would probably have a full glass of this beer, but it really does, like, it's straight tacos in your mouth. It's odd.
Why is there ground beef in my glass?
I've had someone say that too. They were like, "This tastes like beef." Yeah, I don't know if that's too food safe. That one.
That vat must have smelled like
awesomeness.
Sound like tacos, man. Straight up. You should have seen the amount of spices that went into it. It was literally like I have one of those big, like kitchen bowls, whatever it is, and it was like a mound of spices, just in only like 7 hectoliters.
How much were you
it was ridiculous.
How much were you just like coughing and sneezing?
No, definitely a weird beer, but just one of those things where like I feel like that was what Nathan tried to do a lot with this brewery, was like do weirder things, do things that were out of the ordinary, just try things with beers. And it's perfect for me because when I go to a brewery, or when I had for the past several years, all I wanted to try was give me a flight of your weirdest beers. I want to see what you guys can do putting random stuff, like those pastry beers and all sorts of stuff with different wine barrels are really nice. Like I've had some amazing beers from Parallel 49 that are like Chardonnay barrels with like grape juice. Oh, delicious. But I'd like to be able to do those sort of things too. But it was really like, I think it was a perfect scenario for me personally, because I'm not like a German classically trained brewer, right? So I just come in here, make the weird beers, and hopefully it kind of lands with the public.
It needs to be done, man. It really needs to be done, where there's so many options on the shelves right now, and so many breweries are doing the same old, and it makes sense to do something wild and interesting just to pop, right? Like it just makes sense to try something new. I mean, taco beer. Who the hell would have thought that? Brilliant.
Yeah. And it's a funny thing to say, like a new beer in the craft beer industry that we have right now is a hard thing to do. There's been so many people with so many ideas, and beer turnaround is so fast. You do something in 3 weeks, right? So, there's so many different beer styles that have been tried, but yeah, if I can just even, I'm not necessarily trying to invent something new, but just try the weird stuff, and hopefully people from the Okanagan will enjoy it.
I definitely love all the weird things. So that sounds amazing.
Let's talk. Here's a nice segue to it, because I tell you what, Jonah,
something weird.
Yeah, we loved the pick of Led Zeppelin CODA, but it's a weird pick for us, and we like that it's a weird pick.
Sure.
And we got to know why you picked CODA.
Why? Yeah, no. So obviously, like, I was a little bit taken aback, having you guys reach out to me, and I was like, wow, this is super cool. I used to think about music a whole lot, and I, kind of grew up. My dad is a huge classic rock listener, right? So I grew up in that sort of music. And Led Zeppelin was the first band that really got me listening to music in the way that, we all listen to music, where you put on your headphones and you sit with an album and you just listen to all the nuances, especially with Zeppelin, you have all the little imperfections. Oh, yeah. Like you have, I forget what song it is, but there's like John Bonham's kick pedal. You can hear the squeaking, like all that kind of stuff. And it just, it was the first band, and I went through their entire discography just as a kid. I think I was 16 and I, had my first truck and I was like burning stuff onto CDs at the time because, and putting it in my car and just like listening to these things full blast. I'm sure everybody hated me on the road,
We've all done it.
But,
we've all done it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've done it. I went through the entire discography of Zeppelin and I was like, okay, sweet. I've heard it all. That's very unfortunate. I wanted to continually, because I obviously didn't grow up with them. I didn't, they weren't releasing, obviously weren't releasing things when I was alive. But, eventually I think it was a year or two after I'd gone through that and then started to get into different kind of music, different rock and roll. I realized that they had this other album, CODA. And I was like, oh, no way. This is amazing. What a treat.
Yeah.
So I listened to it and that was, I think for me, it was the album that really stuck with me, probably just because of my experience with it. But also I feel like, it's so different. And, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't actually do any studying on this album. I'm really only talking based on personal
That's the best
experience. But they recorded, well, they put it out after Bonzo died,
so
right?
82.
It's like a
and it was like
obligation or something.
Really?
They had one album
Jeez,
left that they had to do, and it just ended up being like a compilation almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, of anything they had recorded.
Yeah.
And obviously paid tribute to Bonzo there with like Bonzo's Montreux.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? I don't know. I'm supposed to be French. So
Okay.
I don't even know if it's French.
Well,
word.
just the drumming on that album alone, like it is. I find that like it is more like recorded in your face than any other.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Any other Zeppelin album, and like Bonham's drums are so in your face on every other Zeppelin album, but when you hear this one, and you're right, when you got to listen to this album on with headphones, right? Because there's so many different little things in there, but it's just so drum heavy, and it just sounds so good. Like the drums are just so good.
It's a proper drum clinic. Is what it is. It's unreal.
They really are. Like he's just got, and there's so many simple grooves on that record that sound easy, but then when you actually just listen to the I just listened to isolated tracks. Like you had me listen to I just wanted to hear the isolated drum tracks on some of these, and they're just like, they're magical. They're just like,
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just it. Go ahead.
So the song "Poor Tom," right? For some reason, it's a completely like contrary Zeppelin song. It's really like not Zeppelin for what they're known for, right? But the drum track on that one, you're a drummer, right? You're a good drummer. Can you do that? Can you do that coordination?
No, there's so many things Bonham wise that I cannot do.
It's one of those ones. It's one of those ones that I just can't get my 3 limbs to do something. 4 limbs, I guess. It's doing all 4, right? And
he is the master of the
songs
single kick drum. He is the master at it. Nobody is better at the single kick drum than Bonzo. Nobody. Like,
nope.
When I remember when I first heard it when I was a kid too, I was like, this guy's got to be playing double kicks, like for sure, right? Back, they had it back in like 1967. He must have had double kicks, right? And then you watch a video
and to
and
be able to
finally
do that with
like,
the gear that they have. To be able to do that with the gear that he had at that time, I mean, there's a lot of amazing punk drummers and metal drummers now that can do amazing things with a single kick. But you have technology now. When you're the 90s, 2000s,
it was like belt drive stuff, right? Not even chain drive.
and to do those things at that time, at that age, with that technology is unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, no, and you can hear Jimmy Page kind of all over this as far as a producer too, right? Like you can tell. And even doing a little research on Bonzo's Montreux there too. Like I always thought it was like steel drums he was playing, right? I thought that there was like steel drums in there, and then it's just Jimmy Page messing around with the sounds, right? And I always thought it was though, because it sure sounds like it, right?
No way.
It always sounded like it, Like you got these Jamaican steel drums that were, they're a great instrument as it is, but it's not that. No, it sounds like that.
Yeah. And this is the kind of.
To be honest, I thought it was all just Bonzo just doing his thing,
going all the way around. Yeah, it's just Jimmy Page
Either way,
messing
wouldn't be
around
surprised.
post production and making it sound all like a orchestra, right? Like it sounds like a full orchestra that he's playing on there. But there's just there's so many good grooves on the album, right? Like that's even like Wearing and Tearing is another one that I still can't figure out how the timing on that goes, right? Like the beginning of it is just like I don't even know how it goes. So no, I don't even know some of those beats that he does. I've never been able to replicate it, even though I've tried like a million times. It's more like just listening to it and trying to figure out how he does it. Like
it's impossible.
And it's amazing too.
One of a kind.
It's amazing the stretch of time that it was done
makes them the best
between 1970 and 78 for the most of the recordings, and then to pick these songs that were leftovers from Zeppelin 3 and Houses of the Holy, and okay, now we have these things that are recorded that are left over 10 years later, 6 years later, 4 years later. What do we do with this? Yeah. And to choose these songs and from song to song, the playability between, every Bonham performance was different on every song.
Yeah. Yeah. But it almost like recorded the same.
Yeah.
Like it just sounded like it was all recorded in like the same room, using the same mics, using the same kit and the same skins.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing is I heard an interview of John Paul Jones one time talking about Bonzo, and he said Bonzo could play a cardboard box and it would still sound like him. No matter what he's playing.
Van Halen, same thing.
And I think that's really what shines through, because obviously it was a collection of music from many different recording sessions, many different albums that they put together for this. I didn't know it was contractually obligated. I thought it was more of a tribute, and I was happier with the fact that it was a tribute. Because it's a very like drum centered album, and I was like, yeah, sweet, you guys, for the best drum in the whole world, you did a tribute after. But of course, it's all about the money.
It was about paying taxes, really, more than the money.
Yeah, taxes. It's all about taxes.
And We're Gonna Groove, first track on the album, I found out too, is live. That is a live from Royal Albert Hall, overdubbed the guitars, took them out, took out the crowd noise, and there it is. And I was like, had no idea. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Originally a live track, but it's an interesting ending to the whole thing, and I didn't want to say it was weird, Jonah. It's just like usually when we say the Zeppelin, somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, it's Zeppelin 4 or whatever," and 3, House of the Holy, whatever, right? Yeah. But CODA was an interesting pick, so we, it was fun just to kind of go back on it, and I learned lots from it, even going through it again.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool.
I want to thank you for picking this, because for the longest time I didn't have a connection with this album. I don't want to say I hated this album, but it was borderline. It's like,
a lot of people did.
Come on, there's nothing worthwhile on here, and I've listened to it, a million times over the past 40 years. And after doing this deep dive and listening to it solid for a week, even if I hate the songs, finding the specific drumming section just made it worthwhile. Where I never focused on the drums before, I was always focused on the guitar and the song structure, and how the vocals blended with the bits and pieces, and it is definitely a drum clinic. It is a drum album, and they could have stripped out every other part and just had Bonham's parts on there, and it's just drums only, and it would be an amazing album.
Yeah.
Just Bonham. That's it.
Yeah.
So is this like your drummer's favorite drummer type of album? Like, it's one of those things which is so good. I mean, obviously, like, all three of you guys play the drums.
I think
I
so.
feel like
now.
the odd man out here, but I'm getting it. This is one of those things where, I mean, like, when I was listening through, I was like, this sounds a little like Rush, a little rushy.
It is,
but
yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like drummers are like, yo, you gotta listen to CODA because
it's I think
Bonzo's
it's
putting
so now.
down.
Yeah.
it's just I think it's a re-realization of that because of what Jonah
right.
brought back, right? Because I think it was just like, oh yeah, like I kind of forgot this, and then like you, Mike, I just kind of just listened to drums. Like the guitar is meh,
Meh.
and
It's
you know,
uneventful.
and the vocals are meh.
The bass lines,
You know,
too.
Uneventful.
but the
Yeah,
and I
the
think it's
reverb
also
on Plant's
too.
voice on.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just gonna say the reverb on Plant's voice that he's got, towards the end, he's got that almost like slap back reverb happening, and it's terrible. It's like the Honey Drippers.
That's it. Yeah, like Ian, that stuff he
Yeah.
did in the '80s. Like that's exactly
Yeah.
what it's like, right? Yeah.
Anyway, it's not about that though.
No, and I kind of forgot about that when I listened to it. When I listened to it more, and it was just like if you just listen to the isolated drums, and you know what, this is another good album too that shows how tight John Paul Jones is with Bonham. Like I don't know, as far as like a bass and drum combination, he is doing every single thing that Bonham is doing, but on the bass, right? Like he's doing pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Saint Tristan's Sword, that song. That is like the perfect, for me, that is like the two of them just, playing the same instrument together, one hand on each.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I don't know of a better combination. I shouldn't say I don't know, but there's not many better combinations of bass players and drummers together than that and probably Think Not Think.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. 100%. I concur.
Yeah. And if you haven't listened to Think Not Think, Jonah, go for it.
You should.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check them out.
Yeah, that's the 20th anniversary band. Hey man, thank you so much for coming on with us. This was awesome. Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
It's been an absolute
Yeah.
pleasure, guys. Thanks for inviting
We
me on.
wish you nothing but the best here coming up with everything that's opening up and building and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully we can get down there to visit you and pick up some beer and drink a couple
Have a
with
taco,
you. Have a
beer,
taco, man. Have a mouthful of tacos.
Yeah.
All right, we want you guys to subscribe, share, and review this podcast. Keep it going, keep it strong, because we're having a great time entertaining you guys with B-Sides and Beers podcast.